The Okafor family mansion was filled with laughter and whispers of preparation for Chaik's wedding. Ada sat quietly, her hands trembling, as the elders discussed the ceremony. She was deeply in love, believing Chaik was her forever. But deep down, his family despised her because she was poor. Little did she know, this meeting was a trap. The morning sun rose over the village like a golden crown, casting its warm rays on the colorful decorations hanging across the Okafor compound. It was the day Ada had dreamt of since childhood, her wedding day. The air was filled with music, the rhythmic beat of traditional drums, and the sweet aroma of jollof rice and roasted meat. Guests were already seated, dressed in their finest attire, their eyes glittering with curiosity and excitement. Ada sat quietly in the bride's room, her heart pounding against her chest. She wore a simple white lace gown, not the most expensive, but neat, elegant, and chosen with love. Her eyes brimmed with joy as she stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. "This is it," she whispered to herself, her lips curling into a trembling smile. "Today, I become Chaik's wife." Her best friend, Amaka, walked in looking radiant in a gold gown, carrying a tray of drinks. She hugged Ada tightly. "My dear, you look like a queen," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Ada smiled innocently, unaware that the very person she trusted the most was holding the knife that would pierce her soul today. Outside, the compound roared with celebration. Cars filled the compound, and a convoy of luxury vehicles announced Chaik's arrival. He stepped out in an expensive white agbada, his wrist sparkling with a gold Rolex, and a proud smile plastered across his face. The women gasped, whispering about how handsome and wealthy he looked. He shook hands with dignitaries, laughed loudly, and basked in admiration. But in his heart, something sinister brewed. As the church bells rang, the bridal procession began. Ada walked slowly down the aisle, her hands clutching a bouquet of roses. Every step echoed her dreams of a happy home, of children playing around her, of a love that would last forever. Her eyes searched for Chaik, and when they met his, her heart melted. She smiled, thinking, "This is my man, my everything." The priest opened the Bible and began the solemn vows. The congregation listened, their eyes moving between the beautiful bride and the proud groom. When it was time for the vows, Ada's voice trembled with emotion. "I, Adeobi, take you, Chaik, as my lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, for better for worse, till death do us part." There was a soft murmur of approval. Ada looked at Chaik, waiting for his turn. But instead of repeating the words, he cleared his throat and stepped back. A wave of confusion swept across the room. "Chaik?" Ada whispered, her smile fading. Chaik raised his hand to silence the priest. His voice boomed across the church, cold and merciless. "I cannot marry this girl. This marriage is over." Gasps filled the air. Chairs creaked as people stood in shock. Ada froze like a statue, her ears ringing. She blinked rapidly, thinking she misheard him. "Chaik, what are you saying?" Her voice cracked like dry wood in a fire. Chaik sneered, his words sharp enough to cut through her heart. "Did you all really think I would marry this poor village girl? Look at her. She's nothing. No class, no pedigree. My family warned me, and they were right." Ada shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Chaik, please, don't do this to me. After everything, after all we've been through," her voice broke into sobs. She fell to her knees, clutching the edge of his agbada. "I gave you everything, my trust, my love." But Chaik pulled his garment away in disgust. Then, like salt on an open wound, he reached for Amaka's hand, the same Amaka who called Ada sister. He held her hand high and declared, "This is the woman I will marry today. She is the true definition of class and beauty." The congregation exploded in chaos. Some women screamed. Men muttered in disbelief. Phones came out, recording the scandal. Ada stared at her best friend, her mouth opening and closing like a dying fish. "Amaka, why?" she cried. But Amaka only smirked, adjusting her golden gown, her eyes gleaming with triumph. The priest, too shocked to speak, closed the Bible slowly. The choir stopped singing. The drummers dropped their sticks. The entire church fell into a suffocating silence, except for Ada's sobs echoing through the hall. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed on the floor, her white gown spreading like spilled milk on the cold tiles. She screamed so loud the windows trembled. Her grandmother, sitting among the women, clutched her chest and cried out in agony, "My daughter! My Ada!" But no one came forward to help. No one dared to challenge the Okafor family. As the crowd dispersed, whispers filled the air like buzzing bees. So, Chike dumped her for her best friend. I knew that girl was too poor for him. This will trend on social media. Chike walked out with a marker, leaving Ada broken, humiliated, and abandoned at the altar. Rain began to fall outside as if the heavens themselves mourned for her. The heavy clouds gathered above the village like mourners dressed in black. The rain came suddenly, fierce and unrelenting, drenching the dusty roads, washing away the colorful decorations from what was supposed to be the happiest day of Ada's life. But instead of dancing to wedding songs, Ada now sat on the bare ground at the back of the church, her white gown soaked, clinging to her shivering body like a shroud. Her makeup had washed away, leaving black streams of mascara running down her cheeks. Her hair, once neatly styled, now hung like wet ropes around her pale face. She sat there, hugging her knees, rocking back and forth like a child abandoned in the wilderness. Her teeth chattered from the cold, but the storm raging inside her heart was fiercer than the rain above her. God, why me? Her voice cracked as she whispered into the night. What did I do to deserve this shame? What crime did I commit, except loving him? She remembered every promise Chike had made, the sweet words, the vows under the mango tree, the endless dreams they painted together. He swore to love her forever. He swore to fight for her. But today, before the eyes of the whole village, he chose her best friend instead. Her own blood sister in spirit, a marker. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. She turned and saw an old man, a family friend, standing in the rain with an umbrella. His eyes were filled with pity. Ada, my daughter, he said softly. Get up. Come home. Ada shook her head slowly, her lips trembling. Home? She repeated, her voice barely a whisper. What home? Where is home when my only family, my grandmother, has collapsed because of me? The man hesitated, then spoke words that pierced her heart like arrows. Your grandmother, she didn't make it, Ada. She died an hour ago. Ada's breath stopped. Her entire body froze. For a moment, she thought she didn't hear him well. No, 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 Papa, she stammered, shaking her head violently. Say something else. Tell me it's a lie. Please, tell me she's alive. But the man only lowered his head in silence. That silence was louder than thunder. That silence tore Ada apart. A loud, animal-like wail burst from her chest. She clutched her stomach and screamed into the storm until her voice cracked. She fell on her face in the mud, pounding the earth with her fists as the rain washed over her broken body. People watched from a distance, whispering, gossiping, some even laughing, but no one came close. This is the world we live in. They clap when you rise, and they cheer when you fall. Hours passed. The rain slowed to a drizzle. Darkness swallowed the village as the moon hid behind thick clouds. Ada wandered aimlessly, barefoot, her gown torn and caked with mud. She didn't feel the stones cutting her feet. She didn't feel the cold wind biting her skin. All she felt was emptiness, a hollow void where her heart used to be. She reached her grandmother's hut, but the doors were locked. From inside, she heard the faint voices of women preparing the old woman's body for burial. Ada collapsed by the door, pressing her face against the wood. Mama, I'm sorry, she sobbed. Please wake up. Please don't leave me. You're all I have. But there was no answer, only the sound of night crickets singing a sorrowful tune. She sat there until midnight, her back against the door, shivering in the cold. The wedding gown that once symbolized joy now felt like chains of shame dragging her down. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. They had all been spent. Finally, with trembling legs, Ada stood. She looked at the sky and whispered, her voice cold and broken. God, if you're real, if you're truly up there, watch me. I swear on Mama's grave, I will never forgive them. Chike, Amaka, all of them. I will rise, and when I do, they will crawl on their knees before me. Mark my words, they will pay for every tear they made me shed. As Ada wandered the lonely street, an old woman in rags approached. She placed a strange golden pendant in Ada's hand and whispered, "The world will bow to you, but never lose your heart." Before Ada could speak, the woman vanished into thin air. With nothing but pain and the pendant, Ada boarded a night bus to the city. She didn't know where she was going. Ada had no roof over her head, no bed to lay on. Every night, she curled up in dim corridors, her thin frame trembling against the biting wind that howled through broken windows. By day, she scrubbed greasy plates in run-down local restaurants, her fingers raw and blistered. In return, she earned scraps, just enough to silence the hunger gnawing in her belly. Some nights, when work failed, pride bowed its head. Ada stretched out her trembling hands to strangers, begging for a morsel of bread. Some ignored her. Others mocked her. A few tossed coins that clinked like insults on the pavement. Yet through it all, she clutched the pendant close to her chest, the only thing that tied her to a forgotten past and a fragile hope. Every night, before sleep claimed her weary eyes, she whispered a prayer into the darkness. God, don't let my story end like this. Send me a miracle. But miracles, in a city like this, were scarce. One fateful afternoon, Ada's life took an unexpected turn. While wandering the bustling streets, hungry and exhausted, she crossed paths with Chief Eliza, a powerful and wealthy businessman known for his influence in the city. His presence commanded respect. His convoy of sleek black SUVs spoke of opulence. After a brief conversation, Chief Eliza offered her a position as a maid in his sprawling mansion. Grateful for a chance to escape misery, Ada accepted without hesitation. Little did she know that behind those golden gates lay secrets darker than midnight. Secrets that would shatter her innocence and alter her destiny forever. Chief Amos grew deeply fond of Ada's humility and quiet strength. Unlike the people who surrounded him for what they could gain, Ada served him with a pure heart. She never asked for money, never expected favors. She simply cared for him like a daughter would. Her kindness touched something in Chief Amos that wealth and power had long buried, a longing for genuine love. One evening, as he lay frail and gasping on his sickbed, Chief Amos called his lawyer and personal assistant. His voice was weak, but his mind was sharp. "Prepare the documents," he whispered. "Ada, she is no longer just a maid. From today, she is my daughter. My heir. Everything I own belongs to her." The lawyer hesitated, shocked, but Chief Amos gave him a stern look that ended all arguments. With trembling hands, the old man signed the will, sealing Ada's destiny forever. Days later, Chief Amos breathed his last. The mansion that once echoed with his commanding presence fell silent. Ada wept uncontrollably. She had lost more than a boss. She had lost a father figure, the only person who truly saw her worth. But her grief didn't last long, because Chief Amos' greedy children came like vultures. They never loved their father. They only loved his money. Unaware of the secret will, they stormed the mansion, their voices dripping with hatred. "You useless girl," one spat. "Who are you to cry here? Pack your rags and leave." Before Ada could explain, they dragged her outside like trash, throwing her few belongings on the cold pavement. She stood in the rain, her heart shattered, her clothes soaked, clutching a small bag to her chest. The mansion gates slammed shut behind her as laughter echoed from within. They thought they had won, but destiny was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Shivering under the cold night breeze, Ada sat by the gate, tears streaming down her swollen cheeks. Her heart ached from the cruel betrayal of those she once called family. As she clutched the only thing she had left, the strange pendant the old woman had given her months ago, its sharp edge pricked her palm. In that moment, something inside urged her to go back into Chief's study, despite being banished. Summoning courage, she sneaked in, her hands trembling as she approached the large mahogany desk. To her shock, the pendant slipped from her fingers and landed perfectly inside a tiny, almost invisible keyhole on the side of the desk. With a faint click, a hidden compartment swung open. Inside lay a neatly stacked pile of documents, glittering gold bars, and a letter sealed with Chief's signature. Her breath caught as she read the contents. Every property, every company share, and billions in assets. All legally willed to her, Ada, the humble girl they had thrown away like trash. Ada disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a trail of whispers and unanswered questions. Months turned into seasons, and just when everyone had forgotten her, the world gasped in shock. She re-emerged, not as the timid, humiliated girl they once mocked, but as a vision of elegance and power. Her beauty was breathtaking, her confidence unshakable, and her presence commanded every room she entered. Draped in designer gowns and escorted by an entourage of influential figures, Ada had transformed into a billionaire business mogul. Her name was now on the lips of CEOs, politicians, and celebrities. The very people who once ridiculed her now bowed in respect, scrambling for her attention and favor. Ada returned to her village like royalty, her arrival shaking the very ground they once mocked her on. A long convoy of gleaming luxury cars snaked through the dusty roads, escorted by bodyguards in black suits and tinted shades. Children abandoned their games and ran after the cars in awe. Women peeped from behind their curtains, whispering in disbelief, while men stood frozen, their jaws hanging open. The Okafor family, the same people who once ridiculed her for being poor, who laughed when she had nothing, now trembled like leaves in a storm. They rushed forward, bowing low, not out of respect but out of fear and desperation. Their hearts pounded as the door of the first car opened. Out stepped Ada, dressed in an elegant gown that screamed wealth and power. Diamonds glistened on her neck, and her confidence radiated like the morning sun. They stared, unable to believe their eyes. This was no longer the timid girl they had humiliated. Chaik's once thriving business empire crumbled like a house of cards, leaving him drowning in debts and shattered dreams. The man who was once celebrated as a pillar of success now walked the streets with shoulders hunched, burdened by humiliation. As their fortune vanished, Amaka, his wife, changed beyond recognition. No longer the loving partner she once was. Arrogance replaced humility, and betrayal crept into her heart like a poisonous vine. She began flirting with men who could offer her the luxury she had lost, ignoring her husband's pain. Their once beautiful mansion now echoed with silence and misery, the walls bearing witness to their bitter arguments. Now, they stood on the brink of eviction, with creditors knocking at their door and hunger creeping into their home. The family that once commanded respect was reduced to nothing, broke, desperate, and abandoned by those who once sang their praises. Ada stumbled upon the shocking truth that shattered every illusion she had about Amaka's so-called love story. The woman everyone thought was a devoted wife had never truly loved Chaik at all. In fact, Amaka had only agreed to marry him because she was secretly pregnant for another man. A dark secret she carried into their marriage like a ticking time bomb. For years, Chaik had lived in ignorance, showering her with love, sacrifice, and trust, while she wore the mask of a loyal wife. But when the truth finally came crashing down on him, it was more than just betrayal. It was a death sentence to his soul. Chaik stood frozen, his heart pounding like a drum of war, as every memory of their life together replayed in his mind. The vows they took, the dreams they shared, the struggles he endured just to make her happy. All of it was a lie, built on the fragile foundation of deception. After years of humiliation and betrayal, Ada finally had her moment of victory. The family that once mocked her now stood shattered before her eyes. When their mansion went up for auction due to unpaid debts, Ada seized the opportunity without hesitation. With a single signature and a confident smile, she became the new owner of the house that once symbolized their pride. Moving day was nothing short of poetic justice. Ada arrived in a sleek black SUV, stepping out in an elegant designer dress and towering heels that clicked against the marble floor with authority. The once proud family stood outside, clutching their belongings, their faces drenched in shame and silent tears. Their pleading eyes met hers as they dropped to their knees, begging for mercy. But Ada didn't flinch. She walked past them slowly, her fragrance lingering in the air like a reminder of power and success. With a faint smile curling on her lips, she whispered, "This is just the beginning." When Ada finally discovered the truth, her entire body trembled with shock. The frail old woman who had once given her the mysterious pendant, the very object that changed her life, was not an ordinary beggar as she had believed. She was Chief Amos's mother, the powerful matriarch of the wealthiest family in the region. Disguised in tattered clothes and grey dust, the old woman had approached Ada to test the purity of her heart. While many others had turned her away in scorn, Ada had shown kindness without expecting anything in return. That single act of compassion became the key that unlocked Ada's destiny. Now, standing in the grand hall of the Amos mansion, Ada realized the true meaning of her journey. The pendant was never just an ornament, it was a silent witness to the goodness in her soul, a goodness that would soon be rewarded beyond her imagination. Broken, consumed by greed, and driven by envy, Chaik's heart turned completely dark. Unable to accept that Ada had risen from poverty to wealth and honor, while he remained a failure, he hatched a wicked plan. In his twisted mind, Ada was the reason for all his misfortunes. She had to pay. Late one evening, under the cover of darkness, Chaik ambushed Ada as she returned from an event. He kidnapped her, tying her hands and dragging her into an abandoned building on the outskirts of the village. His eyes burned with rage and desperation as he paced around her, shouting bitter words. "You think you are better than me now? You think because that old woman gave you riches, you can look down on me?" he screamed, his voice trembling with hatred. Ada, terrified and in tears, tried to plead for her life, but Chaik had already made up his mind. He pulled out a rusty machete, planning to end her life and seize her wealth, convinced that killing her would somehow make him rich and powerful. But just as he raised the weapon, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Unknown to Chaik, someone saw him and alerted the police. Within minutes, security officers and the police stormed the building. Chaik tried to escape, but his legs shook as they wrestled him to the ground. He screamed and cursed, but it was too late. Ada was freed, trembling and broken, while Chaik was handcuffed and dragged away like a common criminal. His evil plan had failed miserably, and instead of living in wealth, Chaik ended up rotting in prison, haunted by the memory of the woman he once claimed to love. Despite everything Chaik had done to her, the betrayal, the humiliation, the attempt on her life, Ada still found it in her heart to show kindness. When news reached her that Chaik had been badly injured in a violent prison fight and was clinging to life, everyone expected her to laugh and turn away. But Ada surprised them all. Quietly, without telling anyone, she settled the hospital bills and ensured he received the best medical care possible. Standing by his bedside, watching the once proud man lie helpless and broken, Ada leaned close and whispered softly, her voice steady but filled with power. "Chaik, you tried to destroy me. You wanted me dead. But look at me now. I'm stronger than ever. The best revenge is success." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him speechless, with tears streaming down his face, because at that moment, he realized he had lost far more than money. He had lost her forever. Amaka, once the proud wife who mocked Ada, fell into disgrace and ruin. Stripped of wealth and dignity, she wandered the streets like a shadow of her former self. In her desperation to hold on to a luxurious life, she sold her body and slept with a married man, unaware that he was a powerful occultic figure. That single night destroyed her. Strange voices tormented her mind, shadows pursued her wherever she went, and her beauty withered as if cursed. She could no longer sleep in peace, nor walk without hearing whispers of doom. Within months, Amaka lost her mind completely. Clothed in rags, her hair wild, she ran mad on the streets, screaming Ada's name with every step, as though the sound of it burned her soul. The same lips that once ridiculed Ada now cried out for her, but Ada was far beyond her reach.